Hello and welcome to ALTbrown, a podcast highlighting alternative voices in communities of color. You can find us at altbrown.tumblr.com or on soundcloud.com/altbrown. I'm your host Sharky, and with our co-host Pady, and we're joined today with Eiynah Nicemangos. She's a Pakistani-Canadian sex blogger and illustrator of the children's book My Chacha is Gay. For those of you that don't know Urdu, including Pady, Chacha means one's paternal uncle.
I got that much. I mean, I am Indo-Caribbean.
All right. Right.
So how's everything going? Well, snowy here in Toronto.
Our brothers.
Guys?
Yeah, we got snow here out in New York and me in Baltimore. So I want to talk about a few things. What are some common misconceptions that Pakistanis have about sex?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I mean, firstly, I can't speak for all Pakistanis, obviously, but some of the things I come across often are, well, the most common being frightened emails from teenage boys who think they're dying because of masturbating. So, yeah, I mean, somehow it's put in their heads that either masturbation weakens your body and you're left to waste away, or it'll just straight up kill you eventually. And I just have to point them to like sources, and there's so much misinformation out there. I mean, I've spoken to doctors who refuse to give unmarried female patients pap smears because the idea is that if you're unmarried, you obviously cannot be having sex. Even if the female patient is demanding a pap smear and concerned about her health, they still won't give her one.
All right. Now, I'm a dude. Is a pap smear kind of an essential
yes.
preventative check?
Yes.
Yes, once you're sexually active, definitely.
Not even if you're not sexually active. I think there's so many medical conditions that a woman has, especially after 25. They say around 35 you should probably, but it's definitely 25 because you don't know if you can have fibrous issues with your, especially if you want to have children later on. It's just good to have a checkout,
Yeah.
My question regarding the masturbation is that, do you feel that it's a cultural thing, or is it a religious thing, or is it just a Pakistani regional idea? How does that pan out compared to is that only in Pakistan as well, or do you feel like it's also Pakistani Americans? And I know that's really loaded, but is that being taught to use in the schools, or is it a cultural norm? So because I'm second gen Indo-Caribbean, so my parents are from the Caribbean, South America technically, right? So there's we are still of Indian descent, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of what I see, a lot of common denominators with Indian cultures, Indo cultures, is that I guess we could say brown cultures, that, sex may be taboo. It's not like you would talk to your parents about a one night stand or something. But I guess it's a little Indo-Caribbeans are a little less so rigid, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's not like we are being taught that masturbation is going to kill you, but it's not like your parents are going, oh yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, again, not everyone is being taught that masturbation will kill you, but some people are being taught that, and when I ask them where they hear this from, it's usually their Quran teachers or imams. Parents in our culture often just don't touch the subject of sexuality at all. They would rather just not have any discussions about it.
So you're saying,
it's not we're being told anything. You'll hear a lot of people in the West that were raised in religious households claiming that they were told that it'll cause blindness or hairy palms or whatever. We don't have those myths usually because our parents they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yikes.
Yeah, I feel that same way even as second generation. It also helps that I grew up in the American South, which has kind of commonality as far as sexual mores are concerned.
Yeah.
You've probably seen those pictures of Jesus billboards in front of a porn shop. That's actually a thing. I've seen that, and it's deliberate. It's basically trying to shame people from watching porn.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of commonalities between extreme Christianity and extreme Islam as well.
While we're on the subject of porn, I always keep hearing these stories that Pakistan leads in searches of porn. So I'm just going to assume that the research is valid and that the conclusions are okay. What do you think contributes to that?
I think a lot of sexual repression, for sure. There's a lack of opportunity to even mingle with the opposite sex. There's almost no privacy. So, and, there's a common understanding that premarital sex is so sinful that you might as well be a murderer. Those things contribute, in my opinion. But also, I think it's smaller details, like a lack of refinement in Google searching. Maybe, so they're probably searching for broader terms, whereas Western country Google searchers are searching for more specific things, which wouldn't put them up.
Oh, yeah, I think there's the keyword animal sex or so.
Yeah. So as opposed to, zoophilia or bestiality, they'll just type in, the very basic English terms that they do know. And I see this a lot even in searches for my blog, how on the back end I can see how people have arrived at my blog, and some of the searches are just niqab sex, or some of the stuff I just honestly I don't even want to say out loud. But there's a lot of people looking for auntie sex and auntie porn and
boobies.
Maybe it's an auntie that just wants to spice it up a little bit in her bedroom. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's more guys that their earliest sexualization was from the aunties coming over and I don't know, dropping something, and that's the first glimpse of cleavage these guys ever saw, or maybe the last glimpse of cleavage these guys saw. So there's a lot of auntie fetishization. It's just really sad, and the specifics, there's also, specifics about genital color, often, they'll be searching for, brown women with light-skinned genitals.
It's so weird that you mentioned that. So my dad, we don't speak other languages. So my dad has this box, and I'm pretty sure you guys are aware, Jadoo and stuff like that. So you can get the Indian channels. So he watches cricket. So every commercial is in a different, it's probably predominantly in Hindi, right? Mm-hmm. So every commercial, I've never experienced this. Every commercial is a bleaching commercial. Literally, yeah. I would say everyone. And they get so weird because there's one that I saw for your vagina. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. So people, when you talk to East Indians, right? East Indian generations, younger generations, they're all sex is so taboo. Yet on TV, there's a cartoon, right? But it's a very visible vagina. And then they have whatever name brand that you never think would do bleaching, herbal essences and L'Oreal and all this other stuff that you use regularly in America. And they're in India, they have the Indian brands that everything they have, from the lotions, the shampoo to the genital washes, it's all lightening cream. And is that a normal thing? To lighten your vagina? I'm not really sure.
I'm not the right person to ask, just because I don't really live there, or, I'm not very immersed in the local Pakistani culture, but, I have come across commercials, I've written about them. I've seen mostly Indian commercials for vagina bleach, because Pakistanis would never touch that subject. So maybe it's being sold under some other name, or maybe, I don't know.
Would it be like those mother-daughter commercials, for douche or something?
Maybe. It could be. I've seen an anti-AIDS commercial in Pakistan when I was a kid, and I remember this was around the time we were studying biology in school, and we used to go to Pakistan in the summers, and what did I say, we were studying biology? Fuck. No, we were studying AIDS and STDs in biology in school. So when we went to Pakistan in the summer, I saw this anti-AIDS commercial, and the way they described getting AIDS, it seemed like you can get it just from sitting next to a guy on a bench, or watching a sunset with a guy on a bench. There was no actual description of what AIDS was. They were just warning you with these romantic scenes that you're going to get AIDS. And I was like, what on earth? How are people supposed to understand if they have no idea what AIDS is? You could totally think that, sitting with a dude on a bench is going to get you AIDS, or watching the sunset is going to get you AIDS.
I mean, like, what would you say to someone like, could you imagine, like, growing up like that and, like, really, because it's, like you were saying, like, these are earlier, like, these are people that are individuals that are being taught, like, they can't masturbation is sinful and stuff like that. So how do they think that they get pregnant? Like, by breathing the other opposite sex air? Like, you just, like, sitting near a guy?
Different levels of awareness around this, right? Like, I mean, we have people that are very sexually aware in our culture too. We have like a swingers scene. We have people that attend orgies regularly in Pakistan, and then we also have the people that don't know how one gets pregnant. I remember speaking to a doctor, and she told me that she had a couple come in who were married and trying to get pregnant for the longest time, but then they couldn't figure out why they weren't, and finally, she deduced from their conversation that they were only having anal sex.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think there was one story about masturbation. Of course, again, American South. I think there was one preacher once that tried and compared Gollum from Lord of the Rings to someone who masturbated. So basically, if you masturbate, you become like Gollum.
That's what you turn into if you do it?
Yeah, that's what he said. And I think it probably has to do, Tolkien was from a prudish era, so I think there's something to that.
So what's precious? The orgasm? Like,
yeah. Likely. I don't know where he put his ring. Man.
I mean, Gollum did like fish, so really don't. I mean, maybe it all tied into like sexual innuendos because he liked eating fish and he had precious, so maybe it was like all this vaginal, sexual innuendos.
Yeah, boys on the farm and the like.
But yeah. So I remember reading and I don't remember if it was a Quran verse or a hadith, but there was one part that spoke about the Day of Judgment and how your hands, all the masturbators will have pregnant hands on the Day of Judgment, and so then everyone will know that what they were doing with their hands. And I found that like the most bizarre imagery ever. Like, and also let's not forget that they're not considering women in this situation at all, because obviously women aren't going to impregnate their hands. It's the dudes that will do that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, the hang-ups around women. Especially towards their so-called purity. Yeah,
it's, again, another thing in common with the South, right?
Yeah, but I found it weird, when Muslims talk about hijab, the men talk about women's hijab as far as, candy and stuff, and the women talked about it as far as, like, jewelry and wealth. And it's
I've seen that, like, the comparison with, like, a pearl and the unwrapped candy. Lovely. I totally appreciate being compared to a piece of meat or an unwrapped candy with flies all over it.
If you had to be compared to an unwrapped candy, what candy would you be, though?
That's a great question. Well, I'm a germaphobe, so I don't think I'd ever be an unwrapped candy. I'd be a wrapped candy, double wrapped.
So like a Reese's peanut butter cup, like with little like individual wrapping with the wrapper on top?
Yes, exactly.
I got you.
Or it's one of those like chocolates with the toy in it. I forgot what they call it, like Surprise or something.
Like Kinder, whatever.
Yeah, Kinder Surprise. That's it.
Yeah, because they have like a plastic casing around them too.
Right.
Yeah.
I would definitely go for wrapped candy, but I don't know what kind of candy I'd probably be. But not too sweet. Maybe like a Cadbury fruit and nut, because I'd still want to be brown.
Yeah. I found it odd that, women's sexuality is kind of made into a commodity that the woman doesn't even own. And that I always found that very disturbing.
Well, that's a worldwide phenomenon, right? Like, and we're still struggling with that everywhere.
I think that's why your blog is so popular, because like I'm sure you get a slew of questions regarding sexuality, and just boobs on alone. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure like who are not familiar with your blog is just like, you should explain it a little bit more. But from what I got, it's like how you're explaining how women's boobs are so oppressed, whether it be by women or by men, and it's all these like misogynistic ideas, as well as like just women being taught that their breasts are ugly.
Yeah, you're talking about my my side project, that We Bare Our Breasts.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that last year, and I'm planning on relaunching that again this year. It was so basically it was a submission every week of a pair of Pakistani breasts, and combined with a comment or a quote from the girl or a woman that would share a personal experience with misogyny specific to our culture. And it made a lot of men angry when I was doing these posts. They were like, you're promoting immorality, something I hear all the time. You're promoting women to be, naked, and you're destroying the purity of women. And, why is it that men feel this ownership? I don't get it. Why is it their problem? If a woman wants to send me a picture of her breasts, I don't see why it's some random dude on the internet's issue.
I think it's just, as a woman reading it, I was just like, that is so pertinent, And I think, like, it wouldn't only help younger individuals, but, like, all ages. Like, sometimes you're not feeling as perky, or maybe they're too... Like, women have so many issues with breasts. You know what I mean?
And
we can have podcasts and encyclopedias filled with the issues women have with their breasts.
Volume 1, symmetry.
Not even symmetry. It's like, how do you wear certain things? What's too big? What's too small? Like, it's just so much. You don't understand, Sharky. Sometimes men have it so easy, they have no idea. You know what I mean? Like,
it's true. It's true. I mean, there's so much diversity and so much pressure to be this one specific way. I've heard comments about nipple size and nipple color, and it's just it's disgusting, the kinds of things women are judged on. Like, I remember, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, there's a Pakistani film actress who leaked a video of herself having sex with her partner. I mean, I could totally be getting the details wrong. Maybe she's not an actress. I'm not very good at retaining specific pop culture details. But anyway, so the point was, I think she leaked it herself, a video of her and her partner having sex, and she's having a great time. And the one thing that I heard repeatedly about this video was other girls and some guys talking about how dark her nipples are. I mean, it pissed me off, because we have this complex, like, we want vaginas to be light, we want nipples to be light, and it's like, these are brown women. Why the fuck, can I curse?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. We're not on the radio.
Why the fuck do you want their nipples to be a certain color? Sure, we have different colored nipples amongst ourselves, and they should all be acceptable. Nobody gets to say what's too dark and what's too light and what the correct shape should be. All these things piss me off. So that's another aspect. I did want to showcase a lot of diversity, and I remember one of my submissions, the girl didn't shave her armpits, and a lot of guys felt the need to go on about how gross that is. And I don't know, I shave my armpits, but that's because that's my choice. If somebody doesn't want to, that's also their choice. I don't think guys or girls should step in and be like, ew, you're so gross, or so much judgment.
Sure. It is. It's like, and like the whole nipple idea, like, it's like, it's really hard, because, like, I have younger cousins who are, like, pretty much, they're my siblings, and, like, they'll ask you advice because you're older and stuff. And they're like, they go to, like, Catholic school, and, like, a lot of I guess, like, the classmates are, like, different, races and whatever. And I guess, like, when they're changing for gym, like, girls just talk, or, I guess. And she, like, our family, our genes were very, I guess, whatever word you want to use, voluptuous. So we're very heavy on top and on bottom, right? So, like, as a young female, like, it's hard growing up with dealing with that, because you're being told when you get older, oh, like, that's what guys want. They want the big Kardashian ass. But, like, as growing up, you don't feel that way, because it's I feel like it's more so, in my experience, women are so crazy because they're the ones that constantly go, oh, your ass is too big, your breasts are too huge, oh, you shouldn't be wearing a V-neck, you're popping out of your shirt, your nipples are too brown. And I'm like, you know what? Leave my Hershey Kisses nipples alone. Like, leave them alone. Be proud. And I tell this to my, like, young ones, like, be proud of your Hershey Kisses nipples. Like, if they're dark, that's fine. Like, that saying, darker the berry, sweeter the juice. And I'm not knocking on pink nipples or anything, but I feel like brown nipples get no play, man. We don't get any play in the media. We don't get any play in like porn. Like majority of what you see in sexuality videos, like I was a psych major, right? So like every sexuality class that we had, and I'm like, we're talking about female embodiment and the body and like paintings and what really like what's sensual and stuff like that. It's always something that doesn't even remotely look like me at all.
Oh yeah,
so it's like,
always.
Like,
yeah.
So
well,
why is it a problem? Why is it a problem that I speak up that I have brown nipples or you have brown? There's like brown guys have brown nipples. Why aren't their Hershey Kiss nipples not, sexy? You know what I mean? Like, why does it have to be just a certain type of nipple? And nipples come in so many different sizes and shapes, and then like some of them have bumps on them, and I forgot what they're called. They're like memory bumps, or I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but they're just like little, like little bumps, but it's not a big deal. But like people, I've heard, like when you're growing up, people always say, well, I don't know, something's maybe wrong with them, or nothing's wrong. It's just that we're just taught that, whether it be media or like our culture or religious beliefs or whatever, that we shouldn't be talking about this. And I think that if we talk about it more, then we'll realize like how normal and how beautiful our bodies are. And I think that that's what causes a lot of our confusion, like as individuals, like a lot of self-esteem issues. It stems from our sexuality.
Representation for us in the mainstream media in a lot of aspects. From childhood to adulthood, there's very little representation for South Asian characters. And that's why in my children's books, I focus on South Asian characters and South Asian stories. Just because, I grew up reading about kids that didn't look like me, and I just felt like those are the kids who are worthy of having their stories told. I'm a brown kid, so, maybe I'm not important enough. And that's not true. All kids need to see themselves in storybooks and to relate to the stories being told. I
totally agree with you. I think that's why, as a child growing up, I totally related to comic books and graphic novels way more than I did like regular novels. Although I was an avid reader, like my heroes were like Storm and Rogue and Mystique. Like, and these are all X-Men characters, but they were like, in a way, they were slightly they were Hindu, like they were white enough, I guess, for like the mainstream media, right, for them to be published. But, like, we know the undertone, like, Mystique is, like, an embodiment of Kali and all this other stuff. And, like, we see so much, like, I guess, like, linear or parallel, like, similarities that you're being taught as, a young brown female or a young brown child. And you're just like, whoa, I totally love Mystique. Not because of anything, but because she's blue and she's beautiful and she's sexual and she's sensual. And I feel like, and she was powerful. So she was like all parts of like femininity that I like loved, and she was dark blue. She wasn't even like a light blue. You get me? If that makes any sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's why as a kid I was drawn to like the darker subculture and the whole goth thing as well, because these people, this was a different way to express myself, and because I didn't fit in really, not in my own culture, not in the mainstream pop culture, I guess I try to form my own way of expressing.
I feel you. I totally feel you on that. It's so funny how we got friends.
I found the commonality too, with the piercings.
Yeah.
Also, I'm of partial Shia heritage, so wearing black is thing to do.
Yeah.
And how many of your goth friends always used to ask you like an Indian, like a Hindu name or something, just so they can have like a authentic vampire name, and you're just like, what are you talking about?
Well, I was definitely like the only only brown girl in the goth club I used to go to, for sure.
So, we didn't have a goth club. I mean, like the kids I used to hang out with in high school and stuff like that, I was like obviously the most visible brown girl. It's like, it's kind of funny, like a couple of my friends still say this, like, oh, you'll find Patty, she's the darkest one in the mosh pit, and we say it as a joke, but it's like, dude, that's awful. Like when you think about it, that's awful. But as the years go by, I find that with the newer generations, they're much more I guess brown culture, because they have like Afropunk, they have I guess all kinds of stuff, and it's actually kind of nice to see other brown kids in the scene and in the mosh pits. And I think that it wasn't like, I don't think, because a lot of people will say like, oh, it's just like, it's not our culture to listen to that kind of music. I don't think that at all, because there's like all types of bands that use tablas. Like for instance, like one of my favorite bands, Typo Negative, they use tablas in a lot of their music.
Yes.
And like, if you're an uber goth kid, like, come on, how many, like, Susie and the Banshee is totally, like, Susie Sue in herself, like, would use so many, like, Indian ragas, you know, just.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
like,
I never really restricted myself to the Indian instrument thing at all. I mean, I'm more of an electro kid, I guess, and now I'm so away from the scene. I don't think there's a scene left in Toronto anyways. That was like an early 2000s thing, and it died away very, very quickly. We used to have, like, some of the best goth clubs, and now we have none.
Oh yeah, the 80s is pretty big, you know.
Yeah, totally. But I think, like, I'm not trying to, like, say, oh, I'm not going to look at the whole brown idea. It's just that, you know, we should, as a unit, not see, like, whether you're Indian or whatever type of brown you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what music you listen to. There's always going to be some kind of similarities, especially within music. You know what I mean? But I think, like, it all, like, kind of, I think, like, what I'm trying to do is, like, funnel it all together, because, like, sexuality and music and all this other stuff, it's pretty much all in the same types of hands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're being influenced so much by outer variables that we're taught, like, oh, well, this is not for you, that's not for you, this is ugly, that's not ugly. And even in your blog it mentions it, like, you know, you're being told that, you know, you're ugly because you're darker, or, like, women are being told, like, they're not being told straightforward, like, blatantly, that their darker genitals are ugly, but if you have a skin whitening cream for your vagina, like, who thinks about this stuff?
Yeah, and how dangerous. I mean, I can't imagine, like, the damage that could do to put bleach there. I remember when I did a post about this, a vaginal bleach ad from India, and I started speaking to a guy on the internet who had recently had a conversation with a bunch of other Pakistani men about specifics like vagina color and nipple color, and he wrote a little piece for me to include, and he gave me so much insight, because obviously where am I going to hear how Pakistani men speak amongst themselves, you know, so openly? I would never hear that perspective. Apparently they associate, some of them associate darker vagina colors with, like, STDs and...
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean,
that's awful.
It is awful. Or they would say, like, darker nipples and larger waists have something to do with, I don't know, I don't remember, but there was some really horrendous comparisons. And I remember he made a joke about how he was surprised that dark vaginas weren't being blamed for rising oil prices or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. I mean,
what are the metrics behind that?
Pardon?
I kind of want to see that chain where, you know, dark vaginas lead to rising oil prices.
No. That was a joke he made. He said, well, with all the things that the guys in the room were comparing them to and blaming STDs and stuff on the color of the vaginas, and how apparently sex is more pleasurable with lighter skinned vaginas because darker skinned vaginas are looser and linked to bad character.
I mean, obviously these people have no sense of biology or any kind of sense. Like, how does that have to do with your elasticity? Like, really? Oh my God. Just thinking, it just, like, made my blood pressure just rise. Like, and then think about it. Like, of course, you're an ethnic person. You're going to have ethnic children no matter how much you try to, you know, change up your genetic makeup. It doesn't matter. Like, what are you going to tell your daughter or your son when they tell you that they feel ugly?
You're definitely not going to talk to them about sex and genitals, that's for sure. If you're a good desi parent, you don't want to have...
I think I want to go back into sort of wearing black. I think BDSM is kind of back in the radar after that movie 50 Shades of Grey.
In the desi radar?
No, like in the general radar, popular culture radar. That's a good question. Is it in the Desi radar?
Not that I know. Not that I have heard of much at all. I mean, I've gotten a couple of emails from people about asking where they can find, like, a BDSM scene in Karachi or somewhere in Pakistan, and I can't really hook them up with anything because I don't know of anything.
So are you saying you are, like, the Dr. Ruth of the Pakistani sexuality?
You know, firstly, I'm not a doctor, right? Like, I keep stressing that for people, and people still email me with, like, oh, I have a lump on my testicle, and can I send you a photo? And I'm like, no, I'm not a doctor. Please see a doctor. And this girl wrote to me about her HPV concerns, and I had to go and find a doctor because she said she was afraid to talk to a doctor in Pakistan because doctors are so judgmental that the fact that she's unmarried and sexually active, she couldn't really take her concerns to a doctor. So they have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe sometimes they feel like you know more than their doctor does, because it seems like the people, like even the authoritative, their elder or like somebody they respect is telling them something so harsh, and like they can't open up to that person. And I feel like maybe you're just like the person to, I guess they feel comfortable with you and you're just knowledgeable and you're able, and even if you don't know, you'll like look it up for them. And the fact that you're helping so many people, like I don't think you really I don't think anybody would ever think like any of their blogs or anything, like in general, like would help anybody. Maybe just, you know what I mean? And I think when you read these stories, like I'm sure that there's so many unsaid comments of women and men that are just so grateful for you to just like open up about like just dark skin sexuality.
Yeah.
You know
I mean,
what
I've heard from women who've told me like, you know, I've changed their marriages because now they're able to approach these subjects with their partner, and before they had no idea that there were other people with the same concerns. And, you know, and that's really what makes it worthwhile. Otherwise, it's such a thankless and taxing task, because I'm writing constantly for an audience that doesn't want to publicly associate with me at all. Like, I'm a shameful person to associate with.
Yeah, I've seen your death threats on Twitter. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, so those are the only kinds of people really that speak up about reading my work. So the people that will hate it and loathe it. But the people that love it usually will silently, you know, sometimes I'll put up a post and nobody from Pakistan will say a word about it. But I'm seeing on the back end of my blog that the highest hits are coming from Pakistan, and there's thousands of them, yet nobody will support me or, you know, retweet it or share it because I'm a shameful person to associate with, because I'm that person that talks about sex or that calls out these religious practices that I find misogynistic or whatever, you know?
Well, I just want to say thank you for posting about the Nihari post. Sharky and I were talking about this earlier.
It's so hard to get Nihari off your fingers and mouth. And we were wondering about that. It's like, the guy wanted to go oral when Nihari's so hard to get out of your fingers. How's it going to get out of your palate?
Well, my thing is, okay, so backtrack for a little bit, because I'm pretty sure there's some people who are just like, what are you talking about, Nihari post, right? So there's this like quick synopsis. There's this post about a couple that sends you information about how during their sexual activities, the man, I guess like, what's the word?
Digital sex.
Digital sex, did you say?
Yeah, digital sex, because, you know, digital fingers.
We're just going to keep it simple. He fingered his wife and burned her genitals because he ate such spicy food from lunch, you know, from the previous thing. And you gave some really good advice about, you know, maybe you should, like, you know, cook Nahari on, like, a different, you know, unsexy day. But, like, what is an unsexy day? And I think, in general, spicy food's sexy. I mean, like, all my food that I eat is pretty much predominantly spicy. So I don't think I've ever had that problem before. But then again, maybe Nahari is just maybe he just didn't wash his hands properly with soap. But then you mentioned that how maybe you should just go straight for oral. But then I was thinking, maybe, like, wouldn't that hurt more? Because, you know, sometimes when you eat way spicy food, it's like on your lips, you know? Yeah. And then you add an edit that, like, at the side, you're like, oh, we just realized that, you know, that might hurt her too.
Yeah.
But the fact that opens up, I think that opens up so much. Like, we don't have a food like Nihari, like, itself, but, like, West Indian food is very spicy, like, very spicy. And, like, to the point, like, my family, we make our own pepper sauce, you know what I mean? So it's, like, made with scorpion peppers and ghost peppers, and that's, like, the highest rate.
So if you're chopping up ghost peppers or something, you certainly don't want to go and masturbate or go finger someone right after.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, but when we chop them up, we use gloves.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, latex gloves and stuff like that. But I think, like, it was such a like, I don't know why this post, of all the posts that you mentioned, like, of course, they totally spoke to me, but this one really, really grabbed me. I was like, God damn it. Like, I want to share it with everybody. I think I shared it with, like, 10 people just now. I was just like, look at this. This is ridiculous. Could you imagine?
There was also a comment which someone mentioned that there's a fetish around penetration with peppers.
Yeah, I saw that, and ow, I don't know how popular that is, but
can you please explain this to me, Sharky? Because we just briefly, I said let's hold it for the podcast, right? So what are you saying? Like you're taking a jalapeno and sticking up someone's vagina?
Yes,
Or
something like
penis?
that, like or a spicy, shaped object.
Oh, like a
pepper.
spicy.
Like
I mean, what
bell
other
pepper,
spicy?
I guess. I don't know. Jalapeno, maybe jalapeno, maybe
peppers are-
habanero. I don't know.
that cannot be good.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't think so.
I love Scotch bonnets, but I definitely don't want anyone near my vajayjays. Like my genital area that I will not bleach.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. So
And
what happens?
you mentioned the washing hands with soap properly. Obviously, that is the basic thing to do. But the guy mentioned it was a few hours later, right? And he had washed his hands a few times. And I mean, I've had this where I've rubbed my eyes after having like spicy food, like hours later, multiple hand washings and shower later, but my eyes will burn and I'll remember, shit, So I can believe that the residue doesn't come off so easily. And I found a whole website dedicated to these home remedies for getting the oils and residue off your fingers.
You like rubbing alcohol really good? Like, if you just like take a cotton
perhaps,
ball.
but that would not be good for genitals.
Yes.
Oh man, like you're not going to touch her, like you're not going to interact with your genitals right away after the
Right.
I mean, just take a cotton ball and just like, rub your hands a little bit, and then
mentioned that dairy also cuts the enzyme or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, if there are people willing to try this out and send me an email afterwards, I'd be grateful. I mean, someone mentioned on the internet that it's totally the guy can't wash his hands properly. So I suggested, like, why don't you do an experiment, like eat nahari and jerk off a couple of hours after and tell me how it goes. And I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but if you really think hand washing is the only is the only problem here, then definitely I'd say do that experiment for me.
And we all know that curries and like stews and things stain your hands. You know what I mean? And you'll smell it.
Yeah.
Like even like if you eat with your hand, like we eat with our hands. It just tastes better. We all know this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you'll eat with your hands, and like even my nail polish sometimes, like light colored nail polish, would get stained so severely.
Mm-hmm.
And like days after, you'd have to just take it all off.
Yeah.
Like I don't know,
Right.
but that's a real concern. I mean, it's a real.
Yeah,
serious.
I'm actually surprised that this hasn't come up before. Now that it was brought up to me, I was like, wow. And so many people messaged me on Facebook and were like, I did this to myself. I once ate nahari and masturbated. Or someone was like, oh, my boyfriend had chicken wings once, and I had to get ice because it burned so bad. Or different. And one person even mentioned how like peeing after having hot chicken wings, handling your penis, just the touching part, can burn.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, thank you for sharing. Whoever, hopefully they'll hear this podcast, but if they don't, I mean, if they do or whatever, on the slight chance, thank you for sharing your truth. We have all benefited from it.
Yes.
You're very welcome.
Public service announcement.
We thank you.
Yeah, that should be on the Pakistani PSAs instead of that, romantic AIDS commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe like one of those bleaching creams to be like, it's not going to hurt as much as, you fingering your girlfriend after eating nihari, but
it might though. Bleach, come on.
Oh, good Lord, I can't imagine. I just can't get it out of my head. I don't mean to bring it up so much. I just don't understand it. It upsets me.
I think we should make penis bleach cream just as a...
You think someone probably used it after seeing like a commercial? Like, I'm sure someone.
Yeah, probably.
Like their balls were
like
just
a dude?
Dark. Yeah, like a dude went,
yeah.
My balls are too dark, let me just do some bleaching cream.
Well, yeah, because
like
I don't
just
know if it's
dip your
the same with
balls
women,
in this
but
bowl of bleach.
genitals are
God.
generally darker.
A side note, anyone listening to this, bleach should be nowhere near your genitals.
No.
Just nowhere near.
And
this
neither
is
should nahari.
Neither
Yes,
nahari.
sorry.
No bleach, no nahari.
Yep. This is what everyone should take away from this podcast.
And wash your hands when you're encountering genitals, whether it be your own or
Right.
others. especially when it's others. You just want to be very polite.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Safety, I'm still hung up on the BDSM part of it because one thing I'm afraid of is that, if 50 Shades of Grey, makes everyone interested in this kind of practice, then people are going to think that that book is kind of representative of it.
No, and I mean, I haven't read it at all, and I refuse to watch it, so I don't really know anything about it, so I can't comment. But from what I hear, it's glorified rape.
Basically. So, I know the BDSM community, they are taking pains to, make sure everyone knows that it's a safe and consensual experience.
Exactly. I mean, I used to go to fetish nights regularly, and definitely there was nothing non-consensual going on. There was always people take pains to negotiate the steps, and yeah. I mean,
like I'm worried, if this catches on in Pakistan, consent is an optional.
Well, consent is already not a very stressed upon concept, you know?
It's at best optional in Pakistan. So if it catches on there, there's going to be a bit of abuse there.
There already is, I mean.
Yes. Yeah, I'm reminded, there's that radio host for the CBC, John Gomeshi.
Yeah.
A lot of accusations, and he tried to defend it by saying, he likes BDSM or rough sex.
Yeah, I mean, what an asshole, really, to throw the whole BDSM community under the bus like that. Like, No, punching people in the face as soon as they walk into your apartment is not rough sex. That is abuse.
Yeah. Unless you say that that's what you want. But I mean, like, I'm not knocking if you want it. But I think also people need to take in consideration that this whole book, it's based on a fan fiction, right? So, like, I've never read the book, and I'm not knocking people who are into it. And that's great if you want to get into BDSM. But that's not, I don't find that's BDSM, the way.
Though. Yeah.
Right, it's not. And people need to know that it's not okay. It's not okay to do something non-consensual. If someone's asking you to do this, you should talk to your partner. Talk to them and just, discuss this. And if this is your opening, I mean, the only positive thing I can see from this book is that you're using this as an opportunity to maybe open your mind and say, maybe I want to try, maybe I've had a fetish and I wasn't sure what it was, and let me talk to my partner about this, or let me do some research. And that's cool. But if you think that it's okay to just throw a person on the bed and just have your way with this person without asking, that's rape. I don't know why you're glorifying that. And how is that equal to, and why would you throw that onto a whole society of people, like a whole group, like whole sense of group that is consensual, that they're careful with what they do. This is their lifestyle. It's not, I mean, whether other people take it as seriously or not, it doesn't matter. That's their lifestyle. That's their prerogative to do this. But it's just like, how do you say, it's just like when someone exotifies you for being brown. You know what I mean? You just can't do it.
Yeah, but I mean, brown people exotify brown people too. Like, I don't get the other end of that either, when people are always like, oh, don't tokenize me, don't exotify me, don't objectify me. Everybody's objectifying everybody. I mean, I read this article about this black girl who talked about how she would never, ever, ever even look at a white guy or sleep with a white guy because she knows their intent from before is that they're going to objectify her and treat her as adventure. Like, what is it like to sleep with a black girl? And I don't like these preventative, strategies, like, against whole entire groups of people without even knowing their individual intentions, I won't ever sleep with a white guy, or I won't ever, whatever, I'm brown, so people must be out to objectify me. No, I don't think so. Sometimes people are just interested in who you are as a person.
For sure. I think that also, I was just recently listening to this other podcast, and this person, this female, she's a comedian. She was saying, her name is Miss Pat, right? She was telling, it was a Joe Rogan podcast, and she was saying that, she was grown up to think, from her mother telling her this, that, because she's black, she shouldn't look at white people in the eye. Like, they're better than you. And that she has never been with a white man because maybe I guess, like, what she was saying is that what I took from it, psychologically, I took, like, this woman spent her whole life, I mean, not really her per se, but I'm saying, like, there are people out there like that live their whole life thinking, and I guess, like, it's the reverse of exotifying, like, like, you don't feel like you're good enough. You know what I mean? and that you should just stay with what you think is as close as you are, and that's the only thing. And I don't know what that's really called, and it's just kind of like, I guess, like a brain fart, like kind of figuring it out itself. But I think like that just struck with me all day. Like I was just like, I was talking to it about with my friend, and I was like, this is just kind of ridiculous. People think this way. And I mean, like, I guess it's like reverse exoticism, like you don't think you're good. Like, I don't know if that's the right term or the terminologies or whatever it may be, but it's just like, there's so many extremes. Like, how does that all work out? And I mean, like, how do you approach it when someone comes to you with all these like hard questions?
Like what? Like, should I talk to white people?
Yeah, I guess. Like, or
I mean, I would just say, like, I mean, everyone is an individual. You can't, judge people based on their skin color. This is what I would say to a brown person. This is what I'd say to a white person. And I think it applies both ways. I mean, I got into this argument with some crazy brown activist lady on Twitter once because she was like, you should always doubt the intentions of white people that are trying to talk to you. And I was like, are you nuts? Like, no, I have white friends mostly, and without being open to speaking to white people, I certainly wouldn't have many friends because brown people often don't want to associate with me. And she's like, well, fine, you don't know much about your culture, and you're probably content living under your white overlords, and you're probably content being pushed around by them. And I'm like, it's not...
I reserve remarks like that.
I'm just awing about, like, not you, but like just that person. Like, we've all met that one person that says, you're automatically, they take away your brown card. They feel like they should, because you're not brown enough all of a sudden, because they feel whatever they're doing is completely brown. It's brown stamped. Like, who the hell are you to say, well, you're this or you're that, or you can't do this? Like, how are you supposed to educate anybody if you're going to be ignorant? like, you cloud off and you say, well, I am only going to say, well, this is right, whatever color's beautiful, and then just completely completely have headlights on to other people's colors or cultures or things like that. And then you become, not only you are like hypocritical, but you're like completely culturist and, ethnocentric. Like, you think whatever you are is best. And that's not helping anybody either.
Hypocritical. And diversity is only okay for these people as long as it's selective, right? Talk about diversity all you want, as long as it's only about, people of color, but don't include white people. And I mean, my basis of ethics is really to treat people how I would like to be treated. And, I would never judge someone based on the color of their skin, because that's how, I would hate to be treated like that myself. So I don't see how people who acknowledge the fact that they hate to be treated like that would be okay with treating other people like that.
Yeah. I'm of the mind, that there are institutions that favor white people, but in the end of the day, you have to talk to people. And sometimes it's just not their fault. Maybe they don't know about their privileges. Maybe they've never experienced it. And you kind of have to work it slowly. Maybe not just sledgehammer them with it. But, it's a step at a time.
And especially if you're being taught this at a very, very young age, you're ingrained in this idea. Just like these children are ingrained in Pakistan that, masturbation is bad, or like anything about their sexuality is remotely horrid, right? And you're going to go straight to hell. We just need to kind of, I guess not spoon feed them, but like just remind them that, you had an opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but sometimes what we grew up with is not necessarily the right one. You know what I mean? And you don't have to beat down someone with a hammer, like you said, but just kind of give them ideas like, oh, well, maybe try it this way, or maybe try it that way. Not like insist, dominate their ideas and say, no, you're completely wrong. You know what I mean? Because people are going to like what they like ultimately.
Well, and let me tell you that, some people listening to this podcast will probably just write it off because it's three people that don't sound brown enough, right?
Right, for sure.
Certainly.
So they'll be like, well, where do you get off speaking on brown issues? I get told this all the time. How can you sit in your air-conditioned apartment in Toronto and talk about how rape is bad in Pakistan?
I hope your apartment's not air-conditioned.
No, it's not air-conditioned right now.
It's so cold right now.
They always speak about air conditioning, and rightfully so. I mean, I remember I've lived in Pakistan for several years, and it is traumatic how often the electricity goes out, how often the generators die out. So you're left with nothing, no air conditioning, no fan, and it's hot as hell, literally, almost. So that's where the air conditioning thing comes in. But I don't see why having air conditioning would affect my.
But the more important issue is, it's like, what is brown? What does that sound like? Like, we're all brown, but we're all of different cultures. Like, we're in the brown diaspora, but we're all very different. And like, what are you supposed to be like? I was born and raised in New York City. I'm as American as pie. Like, and mac and cheese. Like, how are you expected to talk? And my parents are from an English-speaking country. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, Daisies or, of Eastern European culture are not even aware that there are brown people that look just like them, of brown descent, that are mixed. Or, we're mixed, right? But we look super brown. Like, a lot of Bengalis will talk to me in their native tongue because they feel like I'm of the same, what we are, or Tamil, or like, because I'm a little darker skinned, so people will just assume like I'm Tamil or Bengali, or maybe something, depending on what I look like or what season it is, because you get a little paler in the winter, right? And I don't like negate it or get like weird about it. It's just that like we only speak English. We're an English speaking British colony. My parents are from Guyana. That's all I know, and like. So am I less brown because I don't speak Hindi or Urdu or, or any other languages? Like, is that on, like, am I to be blamed for that? Yeah. Because my ancestors, we were taken as indentured sometimes, like some of us, and like, because of the culture, we don't speak another language and we're so mixed up, but we do have Indian. That's like a whole subset of issues.
Yeah, I have a lot to unravel
entirely, but I think like with brown culture,
my family's experience, like,
right?
Basically, I lived in the Southwest states, so people expected me to speak Spanish.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I didn't grow up where you did, but I come across a lot of Spanish-speaking people who get offended when I tell them I don't speak Spanish. So,
yeah. So, I want to move on to LGBT issues. You've obviously done your part with the children's book, My Chacha is Gay. What sort of a reaction have you gotten from Pakistanis? I know I've read a few of it, but what springs to mind with you?
It's been mostly, okay, so as far as the media is concerned, so this book of mine took on a life of its own beyond my imagination and expectation. It was so well received in the world that, it's been covered in a lot of major publications, all over the world.
Because it's amazing. I'm sorry.
It's great.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I don't mean to cut you off. Like, I just think it was such a great idea. It's such a cute book. And it's like, I mean, how do you not fall in love with that little boy and his gay cha-cha and like his uncle, like his uncle's boyfriend and like the entire family? How do you not?
Oh, you should ask the people that are sending me death threats for it. So
a death threat because of love? I mean, like, so What are you saying? Like, I'm going to hate on you because you're promoting love and differences and being a good uncle and being a great person? And
well, according to them, his uncle should be killed or stoned to death or something. And it's not okay, and it specifically gets under their skin that this is a tale about Pakistan and Pakistanis. If this was like a white uncle, it'd be okay because you could pass it off as some Western immorality. It's not a local thing. So a lot of people have been very upset that I have apparently misrepresented our culture.
Yeah, it's like, remember back a couple years ago, Ahmadinejad said there are no gays in Iran.
Yes.
Exactly. Trying to symbolically annihilate all LGBT people in these countries.
Just deny it, and you'll be good.
That's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, but I just want to be more positive on this idea. I know that you get a lot of hate on this, but I've actually met, just being a blogger or whatever, a lot of, because I'm more connected with the Indo-Caribbean diaspora, I've met a lot of online friends that have mentioned to me hey, have you read this book of My Chacha's Gay? I'm like, oh my god, I actually know not know you, but we're Facebook friends, and I feel because of our Facebook group, I don't think everybody is aware that we all know each other via a Facebook group called Daisy Punks, and from that we've sprouted off on a lot of different people. I don't actually like know Sharky in real life, but we've become really good friends. We even play Borderlands all the time together. You know what I mean? And like we're like family. There's a bunch of us. We're all constantly Google hangouting, and it's like Sunday afternoons. Like, oh, what are you guys doing? We're gonna hang out a little bit, like about 10 of us, and it's sweet. And I think that you meet so many like-minded individuals within our group, and like we're just so positive in the sense like I know that you put up your posts and like I think that was the first time I have experienced your work and your book. And funny enough, when I I just kind of shared it, like reblogged it, whatever you want to call it, on Facebook, a bunch of like my like close friends from like other parts of the hemisphere, which are like from Indo-Caribbean diaspora, were like, oh my God, we know of that. It's so amazing. I sent her some money on Kickstarter, whatever are you on Kickstarter, nice. Right? And I remember like, cause there's this huge LGBT community in Trinidad, and a couple of individuals that I like, you know, talk to on a regular were like, yeah, we love this book. I was like, do you know that this chick gets death threats? Have you seen her Twitter? And they're like, what the fuck? And we're like, I know. And I hope to God, I was hope to God she doesn't stop writing, because this is so pertinent, because it hits so many people on different levels. Because again, going back to the whole thing of people are not even aware that they're Indian people in like Fiji and Trinidad and Guyana and like Brazil and all these other places. We experience the same because we've been ingrained with this brown idea of sexuality and what is right and what's wrong. You know, no matter how progressive we are, we have grandparents and parents that think like, oh, it's not okay to talk about it, depending on who you talk to. You know what I mean? Like the age groups and things like that. And I have a couple like, you know, family friends, and like I know a person that one of my cousin's friends is you know, he's a young brown kid, and you know, he's struggling with his sexuality, you know, and he's young. When I say struggling, because it seems like he's not getting as much support as he should from his parents, you know, and I, you know, you try to reach out to them and talk to them and things like that. And I had shot him a message of like the book, and like he told me, oh my God, this is amazing. And he like, I think he Googled you and like automatically tweet, you know, like whatever. And I think like that's just so wonderful for you to like, for all the fucking millions of slews of death threats, they can go fuck themselves, because there's always going to be at least 10 people that can benefit from you and your book and your illustrations and your blog. And it's just so pertinent to everybody. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Thank you. I mean,
there's that silent minority that's cheering you on, even if they're not, you know, talking to you directly.
Well, we're definitely cheering you on right now, loud and proud. We're doing a podcast, whether it
go
be...
Thank you. But it's only sustainable for so long, right? Before people like me and myself, we just give up because of all the constant hate and bullying and death threats, rape threats. It really does take a toll on me sometimes, and it gets a bit much. And the silence from supportive people who will privately message me, as much as I appreciate that, this lack of balance between the haters and the supporters, the silent readers in Pakistan who tell me, please never stop. But so one person told me that I was putting people at risk. They said that I am safe because I'm writing under a pseudonym, so I protect myself. But for the people that like my work or share it publicly, I'm basically screwing their lives up.
That's weird.
Very.
Like if they can choose to not take your advice, take it, leave it as they please. Or choose
to not share it. It's hurtful to hear stuff like that, because I do go through a lot and put in a lot of effort, and to be told that I'm just putting people at risk, which is not my intent. My intent is to help people.
Yeah.
Like you can ignore
what sort of risk? Like is like a moral risk, or?
No, I think they meant like a physical risk.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if someone were to put my work on their Facebook.
Okay, then that subjects them to threats.
Yeah. But then don't do it.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah, like I have to be careful what I share also, because you know I got family that watching my feed.
Yeah,
and probably potential employers also.
Mm-hmm.
So
oh, fuck that. Fuck that.
That's
why would that be negative? Fuck that. You're promoting, like, okay, I can understand some of your blogs. They're a little, like, you know, they're not as, because you're showing pretty much pictures of people's breasts, right? But, like, what is that? What is so bad about that? We're human beings. And why is your job even looking at your freaking Facebook anyway? That's against your, like, that's your right to, like, express what you believe in and stuff like that. I mean, like, Sharky, you're not becoming a president, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, but I would definitely think, even if a president thought, like, My Chacha is Gay is an awesome book, like, what's wrong with that? I'd want
No, but I mean,
person
you have
that...
to think of the Desi relatives, right? They don't know that some of the younger generation are so open-minded, and they would probably, you know, I have some family members that find the most bizarre things controversial, things that I wouldn't even know are controversial, you know?
Is it because you're female talking about this? Do you think that if you were male and talking about this, it would be different?
No, you just don't talk about sex.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about it either.
Yeah,
Wow.
you're Pakistani background, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so same thing. Like we'd rather, and that's what I was talking about, the media reaction with My Chacha is Gay, when I said that it was so well received around the world except Pakistan. And it's not like they had a negative reaction either in the media. They just chose not to discuss it, you know? Nobody really wanted to print stories about it. I spoke to some journalists who said they tried to write about it and were refused by their editors. Some people had the mention of the book plucked out of their articles. A couple of people managed to get through, and one of the papers that did end up publishing something about My Chacha is Gay ended up changing their policies so that they could avoid such things in the future.
Yeah, it's very peculiar. I remind
Wow,
you
you
of
must be such...
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just like thinking you must be such a threat. Your book about love must be such a threat to these people. Like you're gonna break down their governments and their entire ideas of society.
Yeah, it seems like
oh my god.
So
promote love. You're horrible. You're a horrible person.
I'm reminded of this YouTube video by an Indian comedy group about Indian sex ed, and it was pretty funny. And unfortunately, I have to assume about all things in South Asia, if it's bad in India, it's worse in places of Pakistan, Bangladesh,
probably.
and the like. It would be funny if it weren't worse in Pakistan, I guess. Have you seen that video at all? So I remember of course I grew up in the United States, and going back to Pakistan, there was always a lot of awkward questions like, do you have a girlfriend? And that, like, because they think, you know, we're so liberated sexually, and like, you know, we're kind of still oppressed too. You know, I'm from the American South. And you got like preachers like in Pakistan saying that, you know, Westerners are so sex hungry and stuff. But, you know, growing up in America is it's kind of this. There's commonality in Pakistan, like I said before.
Yeah, there definitely is, and I feel even when I go to the States, I feel it's a little bit too conservative for me, and you know, I come across things like lack of recycle bins.
Oh, sure.
You know, and we have recycle bins everywhere in Toronto, and that kind of stuff just bothers me. Or just the fact that even like large malls will not have like wheelchair access buttons and, you know, automatic doors, things like that. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is like a major U.S. city. Why is there no wheelchair access here? And why is there no recycle bin here? I don't know. People may not notice these things, but these things really bother me. Or I'll hear people like using the terms like, oh, that's so gay, you know? And I'm like, wow, people in Toronto don't use that expression so freely.
Yeah, I think it's phasing out, but I can only speak for myself, and I've pretty tolerant circle of friends.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think you guys were just talking about like that, you know, North Americans are much more, because whether you come from America, like U.S. or like Canada, that we have more of an open sexuality and stuff like that. But I think few people fail to realize that although you are first or second gen, we're still raised in our culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something that's just like infused in our lives, and it's not going anywhere. That's why the whole "you're not brown enough" thing doesn't, you know. Mm-hmm. I'm raised in the culture just as much as anyone has. Yeah, sure, we have constant electricity, but the effects of the issues within the culture, they still, you know, impact my life every single day.
Oh, sure. You know, I grew up in predominantly white communities, and, you know, no matter how white I perform, that part of me that comes out that I can't really take away.
Of course. I mean, I'm still invited to like relatives' houses, and then I get there, and it's like a freaking segregated davat, and it's disgusting. Like, I am so offended by gender segregation. I cannot tell you. This is one of the biggest issues I have with going to like desi dinner parties, because I'm automatically shuttled into this women's room, and I don't even think actually my relatives in Pakistan segregate as much as people do over here.
Wait, so when you go to like your family, friends, and like relative parties, like you're segregated by gender?
Yeah, so it's call it a party. I mean, it's a miserable.
I know, it's horrible.
So like, what do you do? Like, how do you? I'm sorry if I sound ignorant to this, because I mean I've never really heard about this. Like, so when you guys enter, if like you and your brother were to go at the same time, like, you have to go in through like the same door. Like, how does it?
It's not like it's not like we're covered up in niqabs or anything. It's just the men are sitting in one room and the women are sitting in another. So we'd enter in together, like as me and my husband do, and then he goes into one room and I go into another, and then I'm sitting there pissed off the whole time because I don't know any of these people and I have nothing to talk to them about. And so I'm giving him the cut eye from across the hall and saying, like, come and sit here with me so I have someone to talk to, and then it gets all awkward, and yeah, it's awful.
Can he sit with you? Like, is it okay?
Yeah, I mean, he does often. He does come in.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what the dynamics are on the women's side, but I know on the men's side, at some point in the conversation, there's going to be a really heated political discussion.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure that's what goes on in the men. That doesn't happen in the women's side at all. And the conversations are dull, often about recipes, religion, children. You know, these things aren't my favorite topics. You know, I don't want to talk about how you get so-and-so stains off of clothes all the time, and ugh.
And this is in Toronto, and this is like in the States in Toronto. Like, so people who are, you know, saying you're not brown enough or whatever have you, you know, who are questioning your cultural identity, and you're still living and, you know, culturally living the same, but you're just having luxuries. That's what people should understand.
Yeah, exactly.
And in that sense, like, why would you not understand how the sexual, like, whether it be sexuality or all these questions, like, why would you not be able to relate to these individuals? You know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. People don't understand that culture carries across the ocean. I mean, we still live it every single day. I mean, my dad is embarrassed by, he's lovely too. My dad is a very progressive man, but some things he's embarrassed by, like, say, pregnancy. You know, someone in our family is pregnant. That's like openly acknowledging that this person had sex, so he can't discuss pregnancy.
Like, you know, it's a funny thing. I find myself when I'm watching Netflix and I come across a racy scene, sometimes I'll fast forward through it.
With your parents around, or just on your own?
With my parents around. If they're in the house, then I will, so they don't hear what's going on. And I think that's part of that programming.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't live with my parents. Haven't for many, many years, so I don't know. But, yeah. I mean, my dad is so funny. When someone talks to him about pregnancy, he just gets really shy or looks down and would rather not.
Yeah, I think I'm getting, like, I don't think I'm like that, but I think, like, when my, like, younger cousins, like, because they're younger, they're, like, 16, 17, but they're not that, like, obviously they're young adults, you know, but, like, because you've known them your whole life, and when they were, like, pretty much in your aunt's bellies, you know what I mean, you're like, what? Like, I don't, like, my cousins made this joke, like, it was just distasteful, but it was funny as hell, right? But I was just like, oh my God. My cousin, she was wearing like a darker lipstick, right? And her brother goes, oh, I hate that color on you. It looks like you just ate ass. And I was like, what?
Oh.
What? Wow. What? And I just became like a total, like, you know, stern. I was like, what did you just tell your sister? Like, you don't do that. Not because, and then like if my friend had said that, I would have hysterically laughed. And I was just like, what are you saying? It was like so awful.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized I was just being ridiculous. I was like, okay, well, you shouldn't be talking to your sister like that in public. Although we were home, but like, you shouldn't be talking to her like that because it's just not nice, but it was hysterical. Like, she was laughing. She was like, oh my God.
Siblings, though, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
that's an international way of relating to each other. I mean, I don't think me and my brother have the politest conversations with each other, but that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Right. All right. I'm kind of at the end of my questions, so I'll just put it out there. Adult film star Sunny Leone, pros and cons.
She's a great Bollywood actress.
She's in Bollywood now? I thought she was in music videos. Like, I know she's mainstreaming pretty quickly.
I think she was trying to do I don't know. I'm not too versed in Bollywood, but I just know she was in that what is that, baby doll like video?
Oh yeah.
I thought she was a dancer. I don't know. I thought that was pretty decent.
Right. Any thoughts? I know.
Honestly, I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. I don't
it's
keep
a brown
keep
Canadian
up with
adult
a lot
film
of
star.
Pardon?
It's a kind of a brown Canadian adult film star.
Really?
And now she's kind of mainstreaming into a kind of course, mainstream, like music videos, and I think Patty said Bollywood, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, I'll have to look her up.
Was she dating Russell Peters at a time, or was she just linked with him as friends or something like that?
I don't know.
Something
but
like that.
I'm kind of fascinated at that mainstream process. Like, there's like this German adult film star, Sibel Kekeli. She's now in Game of Thrones, or she was. Spoilers. I think she's died recently in Game of Thrones. Her character has.
So many people have died in Game.
Yeah, it's hard.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So, and there was Sasha Grey also. I think she had a Steven Soderbergh film or something.
She's been in a couple of stuff. I thought she was in Entourage and stuff like that, right?
May have been. I don't watch Entourage.
I'm not up to date with my porn star names at all.
I just know because like they had mentioned it in the show because she in Entourage she was playing a porn star, and then a friend of mine was telling me, oh, she actually is a porn star. Sunny Leone, though, it's an interesting story because she's Punjabi and her parents are from Punjab, I believe, and she was brought up and raised in Canada, and she's an adult film star. And I think her husband is a producer or also is some ties with porn as well. And now she's been doing Bollywood. I'm not sure if she's acting per se, or maybe there's like notes of it, but she's been in numerous what they would call item numbers as a dancer. And I think she's a pretty decent dancer. She seems pretty like, easygoing and fun, And I know she's super popular. Like one of the most popular ones is the song that she's in. I think it's called Baby Doll. And it's pretty catchy. It's like this cute little dance number and stuff like that. And she's clothed. like I'm pretty sure people are like, she naked? And it's just clothed.
I was wondering that because actually there was one time I went to a restaurant and they were playing, all the music video channels. Sunny Leone comes on and one of the maitre d's changes the channel while she's on and then changes it back. But I was wondering one thing. I think we kind of covered it before about, how, Pakistan culture is repressed. So the only key notes they know about sex is from porn, which, as I guess most of us will probably know, it's more of a fantasy about sex than it is about, sex. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I've been told that by a lot of my male readers, is that the most instruction or, the most they've learned about sex is directly from porn and Western porn. So they have these expectations of what it's going to be like and what their first time is going to be like. Actually, someone wrote in to me recently talking about their first time and how he had lost his virginity to a sex worker and how he found it to be a very disappointing experience, and he couldn't climax because it wasn't what he expected. And yeah, I think porn does damage people's sense of reality in terms of sex.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a numerous psychological studies as well about that, social psychological studies about that. I don't think it's a cultural thing. It's it's throughout. They're saying that the younger generation. I was reading one study that was printed in some social psychological scholarly journal that studies shown that younger adults who were open about watching porn and pornography and downloading it from the internet and things like that have a different idea of what sex is, and they expect a lot more from their partner. So I think that's changing a lot of the behavior, sexual behavior in adults. Maybe the upcoming generations and things like that. They're expecting certain ideas on sex. Like they're like, and girls are much more, and also the study touched on that women, it seemed that women were more likely to give oral, like blowjobs and things like that. And they were saying that in the study that years before, it seems like certain generations are just not as apt to give oral, like females are not apt to give oral.
Speaking of oral, something that I come across repeatedly from my Pakistani audience is this oral sex inequality. And I find that a lot of the men, when it comes to reciprocating or performing oral on their female partners, will quote scripture and stuff at their wives to tell them that, cunnilingus is disgusting or whatever, not preferred and not looked upon favorably by Allah. But they will happily receive oral, always. And that's even the more modern, less religious guys are always like, ew, you're like, I'd never go down on a girl, whereas I'd happily receive a blowjob. And I'm not saying every Pakistani guy is like that, but this is just a recurring theme that I come across. And I find it quite disturbing.
That is disturbing.
Yeah, so there's this perception of, going down on a girl being unclean, unreligious, or, not proper, whereas going down on a guy is perfectly okay.
All right. So I think I skimmed over one blog post you had. We're talking about impurity, about kind of impure, about how women who are menstruating are impure. Do you have anything to add to that?
Basically, just this is going to get me a lot of hate, but this is something that's a part of every major religion I've come across. It's this woman hate, right? If there was a God and he created women to be this kind of creature that is kind of impure and filthy once a month. I mean, what kind of intelligent design is that, first of all? And why is this, perfectly natural part of women's existence, our cycle of reproduction, which could be very useful to, the human race in general, why is it considered so filthy that we can't touch our holy books, Especially, and I'm speaking specifically about Islam, you can't touch the Quran, according to most scholars, and according to some scholars, you can't even verbally recite the Quran. It's just that part of that,
When you have your period, you can't recite the Quran?
According to some scholars. More of them say you just can't physically touch the Quran to turn the pages and try to read from it, but some of them do say you can't recite it even.
I've heard from some Hindu individuals, like my parents were brought up Hindu, right? So I've never had this issue. My parents never told me not to. Like, you're not supposed to go to like an altar if you have you're menstruating. My parents never told me that, but I've met other individuals that were saying, oh, you're not allowed to, but never like anything that you couldn't like touch a religious book or something like that. But then again, everybody has to each their own, right? So people just make shit up as they go.
This isn't made up though. I mean, there are scriptures to back this. And even in Hinduism, I mean, I don't know the specifics, but depending on caste, like there are some very serious things regarding menstruation, right? We knew a family who talked about how women in her village couldn't go into the kitchen while they were menstruating. There's always this common theme of, well, you're just impure.
So you can't go in the kitchen?
Well, yeah, because that's where food is being cooked.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
That's disturbing.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add? Any new projects that you want to pitch? Do you want to plug?
No, but I will be relaunching the Bare Our Breasts campaign again sometime this year. And before it was limited to, Pakistani breast, but now I'll be opening it up to women of, all South Asian descent. So hopefully we'll get a larger... I mean, I still have some submissions that I haven't put up yet. And it's hard to keep up with all the stuff that I get. I keep getting emails and, requests from people to write their story, but I'm just one person, It's hard to do all these things. I try my best.
So, like, if you have, like, someone out there that wants to volunteer their services to be your personal assistant, they would be more than welcome.
Again, though, I'd have to really check them out, because some people just want to, like, get access to other people's private
Oh yeah, that's
information,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So that's another
Man.
risk I can't.
I was just kidding, but man, I just realized like it's so hard. It would be so hard because like how do you do that? How do you screen? But in more important notes, how would someone get in touch with you? Like how would someone how are they able to share their story with you? Like do you have links up?
Well, you can email me at nicemangos.blog@gmail.com. Mangoes with an OS, not OES. So yeah, email me.
All right. nicemangos.blog@gmail.com, correct?
Yep, and you can tweet me at nicemangos.
All right. So that's, do you have anything else to add, Patty?
No, it was just a pleasure to speak with you. I had a great time, and it's just always nice to meet other cool people.
Yeah,
And
no, I had a great time talking to you guys.
I have one more question regarding My Chacha is Gay. Is it on digital print? Can we download it, or is like how can you get a copy of that?
Not digitally, unfortunately. You can buy a copy from www.mychachaisgay.com.
Great.
All right. All right.
Yep.
Well, thanks for coming. It's been a really enlightening conversation. And, I'm kind of a hung-up South Asian dude, so always good to broaden my horizons. So.
Well, thank you for having me.
And that was Eiynah Nicemangos, sex blogger and illustrator of the book My Chacha is Gay. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Please join us for the next edition of ALTbrown. You can find us at altbrown.tumblr.com and soundcloud.com/altbrown.
Okay, students, the syllabus has changed, so please close your textbooks, burn them. Government of India has decided that sex does not exist anymore. New syllabus says sex is a myth like Godzilla, Anaconda, orgasm, G-spot, global warming. ये सब नहीं चलेगा. Next week से हम कुछ नया पढ़ेंगे. Self control and meditation. तब तक के लिए class dismissed. Thank you.